wanted to just give you a chance to tell us what's going on over there and what you're working on. I saw the bills that you introduced, and I know you're working a lot on election stuff amongst other.
So the biggest priorities for me is I'm one of a few people who are on the finance committee who's dug in and have a great relationship with my colleagues on both sides, and I'm close to the finance chairwoman, and we are working on a whole bunch of different projects. So as things come in and people make requests of me, somebody in fact just sent me something. Many of my constituents don't know that the bill deadline's already passed. So somebody in Winchester, for example, sent me something this morning about physician's assistants and trying to get them. We don't have enough people who are teachers to teach physician's assistants. We did a backstop thing previously for nurse practitioners, but we've never done it for PAs. So there are all these constituent service things and requests for legislation that come in across the broad spectrum of every conceivable thing you can think of, whether it's land use, whether it's healthcare, what you name it. So either I'm going to carry it, or there are 5 other people out there who are already carrying the bill. I've learned a valuable lesson after 14 years. Don't carry every bill. If there are 5 other people who are carrying it, talk to them, co-patron it, teach them how to do it, work with somebody on the House side. So I've really spread the love around. And then for things like that one, it doesn't need to be a standalone bill. I sent it to April Keyes, who's the director of the Senate Finance Committee, and she does all the work. And I said, hey, April, is there a way to work on this? This is actually a great idea. Somebody in Winchester who's a PA and a teacher raised this issue and said, there's no equity here between how you're treating nurse practitioners and how you're treating PAs. And we obviously have this big shortage. It's a great idea. So I'm still trying to play catch up as stuff is getting lobbed in and trying to do the bills that we've got in front of us. The critical component, as I see it from your perspective, is what are we doing right now to engage on the kind of the big issues where we've heard people say, we're putting our foot down. These are the ways that we think our community is in crisis, and it's not all the ways that we would all think. Yes, we're in crisis, and we have some healthcare issues. We have all the challenges you hear about in public safety and mental health and all those things. But if you were to ask the average Joe what's in crisis, there are all kinds of economic issues that are challenges in our communities that we cannot overcome. And the biggest thing I think where I am is nobody can find people to work. That's a consistent. In fact, we just talked about that downstairs, and it was astounding. And I was showing a picture of my brother who's driving a propane delivery truck because he doesn't have any drivers. And he was out there the other day with my 12-year-old, and he's showing him how to do it. And these commissioners of the revenue were talking about all the similar issues that are happening in everybody's same communities. And we just had this 2-hour briefing with Steve Cummings, who is our new Secretary of Finance. Super, super smart. And it was a big fight about, well, Virginia is booming. Why is anybody here saying that Virginia is not crushing it? We're number one. What needs to be fixed? And, those were some of my colleagues who were Terry supporters. And that's not to say that they're not wrong, because in parts of Virginia is booming. But it's not booming for everybody. And if you're in the top 15%, then it's booming for you. But if you're anybody else and you're trying to run a small business, you guys know, I get it all day long because I'm like a therapist and a constituent service person and a, business confidant, and all these terrible things are happening. So I have this, overwhelmingly unique perspective that people who are out there trying to sell the rah-rah story don't have, or if they do, they're ignoring it. So I think as we go through session, we're looking at big ideas, big tax ideas, big things to do that have an impact on the economy and the communities that I represent. We're not talking about, Alexandria and Annandale and Fairfax. We're talking about every place else. And I think that's going to get a disproportionate amount of attention, which is actually quite helpful. And I think there is a lot of bipartisan support for that. So Chap Peterson, for example, who represents Fairfax, who is a Democrat, said, I'm very supportive of some of these new ideas that are coming in from the new administration. I'm very supportive, and here's why. And I run a small business, as Chap says, and he's, we're laying all this out. So I think that in our business communities, our chambers, we should have some reason for excitement. You're right. We're not in a terrible place, but there are some people who are, and there's a lot that we can do that's better. We've suffered horribly during the pandemic. So when you ask about what I'm focused on getting my finance responsibility executed perfectly, because that's the part where I have the most significant impact. Working between the governor's office, the House, and the Senate, and the fact that I serve on finance is such a great opportunity for me and for my district. So the feedback that I can get from you guys, because we're right now just at the beginning. We've been working for a whole year. We've had finance hearings all across the Commonwealth. We've done it in Southwest Virginia and our region. We had big Zoom meetings. And now the goal is to take everything we got, all that feedback, and put it together and build this budget out. And it's just like I mentioned, it's K-12, it's higher ed, it's tax reform, it's relief for small businesses, it's transportation. That's a huge issue right now, as you guys know. 81 is a big issue. So just trying to address all the things that need to be addressed. And also the two bigger issues that I think, if you ask anybody where they're having problems, it's VEC and DMV and VDOT. Those are both big categories, big buckets where I think we need to do a lot of work, just from the nuts and bolts part of fixing how they work and how they interface with the public. They are first and foremost public service, consumer facing entities that don't do a great job servicing consumers and businesses, and we have got to get that fixed. And I'm super grateful because the governor has been very receptive to the feedback from all of us as legislators, Democrats and Republicans, as we have just been lobbying crushing him with feedback on all of that. And he's been extremely proactive. So I would encourage you guys, before you kind of just lay it all on me, to do two things. And that is, if you don't have my cell phone number in your phone, you should put it in there. And it's 703-597-7100. We don't have to wait to talk on Zoom. We don't have to wait to have me come out to an event. You should text me anytime during session, because it is the most efficient way for us to communicate and for you to tell me things that you may know about that are happening. And everybody has their own issue specific interests. Some of you, are focused on what you do for this group, but others of you do things in other categories. It's absolutely critical that you never assume that I know something. I rely on my sheriffs. I rely on anybody in any part of the community that's a subject matter expert on anything to be 100% communicative and tell me whatever it is I need to know as we're going through session. And they may just hear something that somebody puts out in an alert. And it may have changed from 7:30 this morning when it was in subcommittee to the time it gets to me at noon. And if there's anything ever I need to know, nothing is too insignificant. It's also super important for you to give me the feedback as we're moving through this process, just on macro issues. It doesn't matter if it doesn't relate to anything you think we're doing. If it's something that I need to know that needs to be fixed, that's specific to an individual person that's a problem, or that's just somebody's got to know about this terrible thing. You got to tell me, because this is really the time to have all that come together. And as this stuff is coming in, I'm able to send it to different people who are all here right now and hyper focused on it and uniquely responsive to me because of the transition. So if there are things that are broken and need to be fixed, if you'll just text me, I can get those things in the pipeline and get them working. And then it's also just the general feedback that I need from you all as we're going into session now. We're like week 2. It's a long haul between now and April when this is finally concluded. And there's a whole lot of collaboration that is super helpful from all of you. So the budget being the central feature of what actually will impact you. So there's lots of legislation, but honestly, every single piece of legislation has a budget impact, and it doesn't pass unless it gets worked through the budget process properly. So
really appreciate that. Thank you.
It's my 20,000 foot update. And the most important thing you guys can do is communicate. That is the most important thing.
Well, I wanted to let you know that we just signed on a letter with the Virginia Chamber about the Small Business Healthcare Association and being able to have, I know for my other business.
Year after year. Everybody's important.
But this is our year, right?
Yeah, this is your year. And here's what's really a shame about that is that Ralph supported it before he was governor. I mean, there was no reason for him not to support it. He got crossways because of where he thought his base was on healthcare. And this was conflated into this larger Medicaid conversation, and it has nothing to do with that. And so I carried that bill. I was a chief co-patron of that bill a second time. We have all the Democratic support that we need in the Senate and all the Republican support that we need. We just need a governor who will sign it. Glenn said, I'm 100% committed. I'm going to sign it. That would be a game changer. That would be transformative for the C6s around Virginia. They have the ability to pool their resources and provide that healthcare. It'd be phenomenal. Imagine if the Bar Association could do that for me. My single biggest cost other than payroll is my health insurance. And it's just bleeding me dry. So imagine what you guys could do.
It would be huge. And I mean, for staffing, like you said, I mean, it would help with hiring for so many businesses. So,
right. Okay. So I'm committed that was going to pass.
Awesome. Good to hear.
I can swear. Yeah.
I'm going to let Timber Ridge, there's a bill out there that would help them and their ability to hire. I'll let them tell you about that bill real quick. And I also do want to get back to 81. If you could just come back and tell us what we should be doing to make sure that we eventually get our fair share of the resources for that. So we'll try to tackle those two real quick.
Okay.
Derek and Julie, do you want to chime in?
Sure, Senator. Thank you very much for your time. One of the big things for Timber Ridge is that we're a residential treatment program. Our goal is to serve as many children and families as possible in Virginia. Obviously, employment, staffing, that's a concern and a challenge. But one of the biggest things is, I think it has to do with Senate Bill 577 is that the whole process of the background check. It's 37, 38, 39 days, and we're losing employees because of having to wait for the background check. And the onboarding process, Senator, changed 3-4 years ago, and it has to do with that actual CPS background. The criminal background, we're still getting the turnovers of 48 to 72 hours. But having to wait 30 to 38, 39 days is we're losing people, and therefore we're having to turn away kids and families. And that's just one of the biggest, most frustrating things in the world is having to wait. You make a job offer, and then you have to wait during that time. And we used to be able to onboard people. Timber Ridge is willing to do an off-site training where they wouldn't have any contact with kids until that background is cleared. But we used to be able to onboard these people and have them on the floor to see the jobs, to see the kids that they're going to be working with, as long as we had a supervisor in their presence, and then they were never left alone. Where this got changed, I'm not sure. But, in order for us to continue to serve kids and families in Virginia, this is going to be a critical turning point for us and other programs like Timber Ridge throughout the state.
And there is a bill that will help, correct? The bill that was introduced, SB 577,
yes,
by Mason, that bill would help their situation immensely. So I think if you could just help us know where that bill is, and if that has
So let me ask you this. This is something I know a whole lot about, and have worked on it as a constituent service matter for people in your position or people who had others. And the background check process has been a nightmare. And the holdup has been a nightmare. And as I understand it, it's also been made worse because of COVID and the backlog. And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there because the governor's emergency order, there was a waiver. So for a certain period of time, it was moving quicker. And as soon as the executive order then lapsed, you're back in the delay, right? So,
yes, ma'am.
Right. So I've been working with specific families. So anyway, I'm super up to speed on this. I've been complaining. I've been working, and short of going back to an emergency order, which God knows nobody wanted, we didn't have a way to help you. So I've been talking about it with the governor's office as a policy matter. We've been working with the folks we've been working with anybody who was in the process, state police, DSS, anybody who was a player in all of that. And we've made incremental progress, but mostly we've been able to do what my Senate colleagues have been able to do, which is jump up and down, draw some attention to it. So what I need to know from you is, does Senate Bill 577 fix it for you?
It helps, yes, because what it's going to do is going to allow us to bring people on board quicker. I would like to be able to take it, and there be a policy change, Senator, in terms of allowing people to be on the floor to see what they're going to be working with and allow us to do more on-the-job training, whereas having to wait until that CPS background clears. At no time do we ever leave staff alone with students, but there was a time when we could allow that on-the-floor training, and now we can't do it. This bill is going to help expedite that process. Yes.
Okay. But it's still a CPS process problem fundamentally that we've got to address.
Have been challenged with COVID, but for many, many years, I used to work for Big Brothers Big Sisters, and from 2008 on, we had these same delay issues for getting staff cleared
It's
or
bureaucracy, right? It's just a mess.
So
right, okay.
Correct. But this bill would go a long way in allowing us to hire and any organization that has a CPS check, which is school systems, daycares, mental health organizations that work with youth. So it's not just our issue. There's lots of.
Well, I know it's everybody. Yeah, believe me, because I've been interfacing with a lot of those people, and some of them I've actually gone and found somebody just because I've been so upset. I've literally identified a person. I was like, I need you to call them back like every 3 days until this stuff gets done.
Right.
And they got so tired of hearing from me that they went ahead and just worked on it.
Right.
So again, if you ever get a specific issue where you get a hold up on a specific person or the turnaround doesn't happen, you should just call me or text me and I will help you. They're so sick of me right now that they will help me. They will help you. Because for some people, it's a crisis situation, especially if you're a family and you need in-home care for somebody. That's become just devastating.
Right. Yeah. So we still believe in the value of the check. It's just this delay thing. And that's not an easy fix from a technology standpoint.
Right. Well, the value of the check is critical, but it doesn't accomplish a lot if you can't get anybody because of the value of the check.
Exactly.
I mean, at a certain point, a body's a body.
Right. We've lost really good bodies.
Well, that's the problem.
High quality.
That's exactly right. We're losing people because of this. And that's the part that's worst of all. That is the part that absolutely kills me.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but thank you. Yeah.
Yes. Anything else that you guys need right now? Well, I mean, that's probably like 1,000 things, but anything I can do right now other than that issue.
Andy has just an exciting with literacy volunteers. He'll tell you a little bit about something that's going on.
Yes, ma'am. So we've brought and officially been recognized nationally now with the campaign on grade level reading. So Winchester City is embarked with a group of nonprofits, the chamber, foundations, the city schools, health department, all that to address third grade reading problems. That 77% of the kids statewide hit SOL standards. We're sitting about 52 in Winchester. So Literacy Volunteers has taken the lead along with the John and Janice Wyatt Foundation and Matt Peterson locally to address the issue and come together and look at out of school time, pre-K and preschool time, and then on-time graduation rates. I guess there's a budget amendment, I think, coming from the House. So HB 30, it's item 136, 22H. It'd be partial funding for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library statewide. It's about a $6.4 million commitment for 2 years from the state that would allow every kid in the state, so birth to 5, to get a book a month for free through the Dolly Parton program. We've brought that to Winchester, wanting to expand it to Frederick and Clark. It's just a funding issue at this point. So we'd like to see that go through and sort of support all the kids in the Commonwealth.
Okay. That sounds great. So I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't know about the Dolly Parton. Does she have a C3, a charity?
So the Dollywood Foundation, and I guess I want to say the early 90s, she realized in Pigeon Forge, the kids had a similar issue to we're seeing here. So she said, what if we gave a kid a book a month from the time they're born to the time they're 5? They get some 60 high quality books, no cost to the families. We did it in Winchester. We quietly opened it up. People can go on and register. So we have 105 kids registered already. And then we're about to do a big blitz now that we're approved with the campaign for grade level reading.
Parents have to register proactively?
They do. Yeah.
They do. So you have to go find them.
We do, yeah. And then they have to go in and the address has to be checked through USPS.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So they are talking about trying to maybe distribute through the pediatricians, through the schools. So we're looking at other avenues to get the books into their hands.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go pull that and look at it.
Thank you.
I don't think we have another specific bill right now that we wanted to ask about. I think our board is really interested in the 81 thing. If you could just tell me what I should be doing to be proactive and to ask where money is.
So a guy named Shep Campbell, who has just come in, is the new Secretary of Transportation. Mm-hmm. He is, I think, super practical and really dialed in. And I think he's going to be very, I think you're going to find this administration very proactive, and I think very focused on practical solutions and not hung up on things that get quickly politicized. And there's been so much, political conversation around some of the transportation issues. They're not political. None of that is political. In fact, very little of what actually needs to be done in Virginia is political. It got hung up, just like the issue that we talked about with healthcare. And I mean, these are all really simple solutions that people desperately need. Goods and services have to get moved. Local business leagues and business associations want to be able to have health plans. Those are all simple solutions. They are not political. The benefit of the governor that's coming in is he's not political. And it's actually awesome. He hasn't been in the legislature for 20 years. He hasn't been involved in politics. He wasn't legally allowed to be because the pay-to-play rules prohibited that. So he comes in with no preconceived notions about politics or about any bias. So the answer is, we just need to fix it. I am shoveling his direction, all these people from the Valley, all these people that live in and around 81, some of the leaders in our top of Virginia community, and I'm sending them all to have conversations so that his people will come in with a full understanding of what it is that's actually going on in Interstate 81. That itself is a learning curve, just to start. And then to have them understand that a disproportionate amount of the burden is being borne by those of us who travel that highway every day. And which should be a 3-hour drive to Virginia Tech for me, is a 6.5-hour drive. And you can almost guarantee that any time I drive to Blacksburg from Winchester or anywhere else. And the reality is that's just not workable. That's not practical. That's not functional. And it's the major highway for everything that we all do where we live. So whether you're driving, 2 exits or 22 exits. And so unless we come up with some better solutions and get some resources there more quickly, we can talk about it all day long. In fact, we can even talk about how we're going to set aside revenue. But if the revenue never actually gets to the project, that's the bigger issue that we have right now in terms of, from my perspective, is that we talk all day long about how we've got plans for these projects. But if it doesn't actually, the shovel doesn't go in the ground for 8 more years, have we done anything? I mean, have we? I don't think so. So that's my goal right now, is to just get everybody talking to each other and quickly get them up to speed. The Secretary of Transportation was one of the last secretaries to be identified in this transition. And I was super involved in that transition, helping them try to identify, the top talent both nationally and in Virginia that we can incentivize to maybe come out of the private sector to come and help Virginia. People, again, who were not political and didn't have those same biases, who would approach this with a solutions-based perspective here, and not a let's just drag it out and let's avoid controversy, but let's just take it on head on and fix it. So I think that some of the transportation people he has around him will be really good at that. It's just getting them quickly up to speed. I think Shep's been around Virginia for a really long time, and I think he knows these issues really well. It's just getting the focus on 81. So that's my goal in the short term. And, you can take a snapshot of where we are right now, but my goal is not for us to stay where we are right now. We've made all these long-term decisions about how we're going to, send revenue to those projects, and we've got all this 81 expansion. But I would like to think that nothing is permanent, and we're not stuck where we are right now in any project, that we have the opportunity to go to this administration with bigger new ideas and say, we don't have the time to wait, because I actually don't think we do. And I don't think 81 is a safe interstate any longer and can carry what it is that it's being forced to carry right now in terms of traffic load.
Agreed. And hopefully, I'm sure Todd is involved in this as well. So
yes,
you're having a Valley boy.
Everybody I know that I love and care about in the Valley cares about this. And then there are a handful of people who don't want anything done. And I think, you just have to navigate around that and understand that we all don't survive unless we fix 81. It's that simple.
Thank you. We're not going to keep you too much longer. I think Cynthia wanted to talk about, now that we're talking about the administration, talk about some of these mandates real quick and just how that plays out legally. And I, just to mention redistricting, was wondering if there's any chance we'll see Jill Vogel running for state Senate #1, or if we're going to lose you.
Well, I'm so sad to say that that state Senate district number 1, which I love the number, is the perfect district for me. I mean, I'm from Shenandoah County, for God's sakes. It could not be any better. The tragedy is that I live outside the district. And I think, there are lots of people who, when redistricting happens, they fake it, they run a place, they do something. I'm not a fake person, and I think that's obnoxious, and I'm not going to do that. So it would seem that unless something dramatic changes, and I don't see the court, issuing a new order or there be any legal challenges to the district boundaries in my part of Virginia, that those districts are going to stay that way. And that sadly, the first district will have a different state senator, which is soul crushing for me. I will be relegated to the district that is to the east, which is now 31. Who wants to be 31? And it's the northern part of Fauquier and a bunch of Loudon, and that's a community that I don't have the connection to. I'm a valley person. I represent a rural agricultural community. These are people I've grown up with and known my entire life since, I drew my first breath. Being separated from that community is terrible. I don't know what will happen. I don't know what will happen in the 31st district. I don't know whether it will work out that I run again or not. But my heart is where it is in the district I represent now. And so I don't know how it's going to play out. But I'm pretty confident that, I'm not going to move. I'm not going to pick up and move. So.
Fair enough, but okay.
Yeah.
We'll accept that.
Yes, at least for now. At least that's the plan for now. I should never say never. Now I say that and a bomb will drop out of the sky on my house and I'll be like, oh my God, I've got an amazing offer on a house in Winchester. So who knows? But for right this moment, I have to be honest. I'm not one of those fake people because I work with a lot of people who are super fake about this. Well, so anyway, I'm being 100% honest. That's the situation right now.
Okay, thank you. I'll let Cynthia say a few words, and then we'll let
Cynthia,
you go.
What do you have for me?
Just again, thanks for being here, taking this much time with us. I do just want to again highlight that workforce is the number one difficulty with all of our businesses. And as much as I am inspired by our new governor and his desire to bring new jobs and new businesses to our state, I'm also very concerned about protecting the businesses we have and making sure that they have the workforce needed. And I don't want to just see a scrambling of workers around the state. So
I think we all know that. And I think we will all work really hard to communicate that. And his Secretary of Finance is aware. And I think all of the people who are around him, that's all they're talking about right now is workforce. That is our single biggest issue in the Commonwealth. We don't need anybody else to come until we actually solve our workforce problem.
Thank you. I don't have all the details, but I'm going to have Deb Taylor from NW Works, who's facing a similar issue as Timbridge. But one of the things she mentioned to me is that TANF recipients are still receiving funds. And so they don't need to be working. And so there's an element of the workforce that could get back to work if that gets addressed. So that's one that I think she'll have more details about. And then I wondered if you could just help us understand a little bit more about the executive orders. There were a lot of them came out quickly, and I'm just trying to understand how much a governor should be legislating like that and how much of that should be in the hands of our representatives. Do you see an inequity there and how we can help just swing it back to the people?
So I think in talking to this governor and to his policy people, I think the effort was from their perspective and how this played out, the dialogue around this election, especially in places like Loudon that actually decided this election, with Democrats and Republicans being very outspoken. And I happen to be right in the middle of that hotbed of controversy. I think the chorus of feedback that we all got, and him in particular, and again, the fact he's not political, it really, it's like really leaves you kind of awestruck with the feedback that you get from people. And that is that they didn't think they had to say. So it didn't matter where you went. People said, we feel like that we've had years and years and years of kind of a heavy hand from the state government. And setting aside the federal issues that we feel like we have to navigate, those stay pretty consistent. But we feel like that rather than being a whiplash of just, okay, first we're here, it's just this whiplash, but it just keeps moving incrementally. And so we feel like we have less control of our business, less say over education, less involvement. And when And this isn't the case, I don't think so much where we live, but it was certainly the case in other more metropolitan areas where there isn't any divided government at all. So, I think there's something really important about divided government. Right now, we have a Republican House and we have a Democratic controlled Senate that forces compromise. I work really well with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. Compromise is a really, really important thing that keeps you in a middle space in your head. It keeps you in a middle space where you're able to avoid the extremes on both margins and work together like normal people. You and I, all of us on this Zoom, are normal people. And we all generally live in this same space right here on the issues. None of us are on the extreme fringe in any category. And most people who engage aren't. But when you are working in communities where there is no division and everybody's in the same space, it makes it really, really easy for people to be increasingly heavy-handed. So when you watch what happened in some of those communities, it reflected really poorly on local government. It reflected really poorly on the local school system. It reflected really poorly on educators, and frankly, a way that perhaps wasn't fair, because that's not representative of everybody. So when you had the issue that happened in the school system, for example, and you had the child that, committed 2 assaults and 2 rapes, and the community was really upset by how that was handled. And instead of the transparency that someone like the standard I would be held to, or any of my colleagues under normal circumstances, everybody, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you're all just a little taken aback. And I think everybody felt that way. So when the governor came in and he did his initial executive orders, they were, in a way, we're stepping back and I think it was an effort, and maybe whether people agree with them or not, it may have been an overreaction. But in the case of, for example, masks, it was, we want parents to make that decision. Now, that may be disruptive. It may not work. It may be that everybody doesn't agree with that. It may be that is a decision that needs to be made on a case-by-case decision at localities. But these are really strong normative statements about here's what our local communities are saying, and they want more say. And government closest to the people governs best. And I think for a long time, everybody just abdicated all that responsibility and said, well, we trust everybody. They're our local people. We elected them. But then they forgot that they still had some ability to engage with them. And they figured out that somewhere along the line, that's been lost. And so when I get on a Zoom call with a bunch of people, I don't sit there and think, well, gee, I know better. I'm going to ignore everything they say. And you watch some of these school board meetings, not necessarily in Virginia, but around the country, where they mock the parents and they do all that. And that's just insulting. And people are insulted. That's basically what happened. So from my perspective, that is the genesis of this. He's a smart person from the standpoint of, I'm going to do the legal research and I'm going to find out what I have legal authority to do and what I don't. And much like the previous governor, who I was actually quite close to because we were elected at the same time, we've stayed very, very close friends through his administration. Ralph was pushed in the same direction, but kind of in the other direction, because he had people in his group who were like, the more you can control, the more heavy-handed you can be. Heavy-handed isn't the right word, but it was a lockdown on one side. And the goal is, I think, to try to settle in an intelligent middle space. So where this is pushing it, so for example, on the mask mandate, this notion that it ought to be up to parents. That's what parents are saying they want. That's where that came down. And then the governor came out and said, but don't be disrespectful. Listen to what your school principal says. He talked to me on Saturday morning. I said, look, I'm on a text thread with parents all over my own school and in Frederick County and Winchester. And I need you to tell me what to tell them. And he said, say this exactly, listen to your school principal, do what they tell you, love one another. I put that in my post. Those were his exact words. Love one another and be nice to each other and be respectful. And really the big issue in this case, as we've had this mask discussion, I know you're not necessarily talking about masks, because there are other orders too, but follow the science, consult with pediatricians. And that's who's been certainly, bombarding us with information, which is, paper masks really, actually, the science doesn't support that. An N95 mask, and that will help you. But this is disruptive in the classroom, and it's really hard for the long-term education of kids. And we have to have kind of an off-ramp for this. At a certain point, we have to actually initiate the discussion about how we're going to handle it. And this was his solution, which was, let's let parents make that decision. Now the Supreme Court's going to rule, and then the Supreme Court will determine whether or not he had the ability to say that you can't mandate that parents get to make a decision if they want their kid to opt out. So that's a very long-winded answer, but it's a reaction, 100% a reaction to what's happening around Virginia everywhere.
Thank you. That's what we.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll see how it plays out. And, we'll have to see what the reaction is. And the governor is super practical. He wants to work with our localities. He wants to work with our local school boards. I mean, when he called me Saturday morning, he was like, the most important thing is that there is not, civil disobedience in parking lots or, even uncivil disobedience in parking lots. The goal is to have this move in the parents in a way that parents feel like they are supported and engaged and not ignored, but also in a way that is absolutely respectful of our local governments and our local school boards. So, we're just going to see how this moves incrementally. But I don't believe that anybody, whether it's the governor or anybody else, should be exercising authority that they don't have legislatively. And as somebody in the legislature, we guard that jealously. So when somebody gets close to the line or over the line, I'm one of the first people to say, whether in my party or not in my party, that, that's in our purview. That's for us to respond to the people who send me here. That's for us to decide, not you. So, and if people don't agree, they will challenge these executive orders as they are this one. It'll go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will say whether or not it's within your authority or not.
And as a parent, I'm just worried about the kids that are put in the middle of this too, when my kids go to school and they're being.
Well, and that's why it was really important for all of us to say, because what you don't want is for parents trying to push an agenda on either side and put their kids in the middle and make them have to make rude statements about it. And I've heard my children talk about things that have been said in school, and it just doesn't need, that discussion doesn't need to happen around them. And they feel really like, it's just an awkward situation. And so those things should be decided by adults, and kids shouldn't have to, be involved in it. And it should not be a political conversation. It should be a public health conversation. Like and what does the science support? If you're 5 and older and you're vaccinated and maybe you've had a booster, what's safe for you? If you have a classmate who isn't, or is immunosuppressed or has other issues, what's safe for that person? And then what do you need to do to accommodate everybody's health and make everybody safe? That's really what the conversation should be about, not some kind of hysterical political conversation around something that it's not, because they're just people who love to fight. And those are the people that I really like to stay away from. I would like to just solve the problem so that we have kids. I mean, personally, my children really, really hate wearing masks. They really do. But I want them to wear masks if it's going to keep them safe. And if they're not going to get infected or infect other people. At a certain point when it's safe, we need to stop wearing them. That's my view. So anyway.
Thank you. Well, we really appreciate your time. We hope maybe we can do this again during session and you can give us an update.
You can do it as much as you want. And the most important thing is if there are bills that pop up that you guys know are a bad or a problem, and it's any of your, each one of you guys, you've got literacy, you got all the different issues that you guys are covering that are broader than my ability to follow on a minute-to-minute basis. Please, please, please call me or text me. And I'm happy to do a Zoom. I'm happy to talk about it anytime. I'm happy to have you guys come visit here. I'm happy to see you any way you want to visit. I just feel like while you have me, take full advantage of what I can do to help you.
We'll definitely keep you posted as the bills come out.
And don't hold back. If you want to complain or be critical or say something's going horribly badly, or you hate the way I'm doing something, or you hate how I voted on something, I'm never offended. I actually really value the good feedback. So I don't need to hear when I'm doing a good job, because I wouldn't vote that way if I didn't think I was doing the right thing. I need you to tell me when it's wrong. So please, please, please speak up.
Okay. We'll let you know both. We'll make you that deal.
Please.
We'll tell you both. And we also want to get the governor for our post-legislative event. We want to get you and the governor out here. So I'll send you the details, and if you could put in a good word for us.
You send me the invitation. Okay. And send me what you want the governor's office to get, then I'll make sure it gets popped over there and gets a higher priority, and I'll ask him to come as a favor to me. So we'll work on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill.
Good luck out there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great day and good luck.
You too.
You as well.
See ya. Bye.